Lieutenant Derek Webb stepped off the transport shuttle and immediately felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. Well, not eyes exactly. The Valkyrie had something closer to crystalline senses embedded in their skulls, but the feeling was the same. He was being watched, studied, measured. The throne ship stretched out before him like a floating city made of black metal and purple light. Derek had seen plenty of alien architecture in his 5 years with the diplomatic corps, but nothing quite like this. The Valkyrie didn't build ships, they built monuments to their own power. Every surface gleamed with an almost threatening perfection. Lieutenant Webb, his escort clicked in barely understandable English. The translator chip in Derek's ear did most of the heavy lifting. Queen Rathena will see you now. Derek's stomach tightened. He'd read the briefings a dozen times on the journey here. Queen Rathena had ruled the Valkyrie Empire for 90 standard years. She'd never lost a battle. Never shown weakness. Never smiled, according to the reports, though Derek wasn't entirely sure if Valkyrie even could smile. The throne room was absurdly large. Derek's footsteps echoed as he walked across the polished floor, and he had the distinct impression that was intentional. Make the visitor feel small. Make them understand who held the power here. Queen Rathena sat on a throne that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of obsidian. She was tall, easily 8 feet if she stood, with armor-plated skin that shimmered between deep purple and black. Her face was angular, almost beautiful in an alien way, but her eyes were what caught Derek's attention. They were intelligent, sharp, and completely cold. Lieutenant Derek Webb of Earth, she said, her voice resonating through the chamber without any visible effort. You are the new cultural liaison. Yes, Your Majesty. Derek bowed, hoping he got the angle right. Bow too deep and you looked weak. Not deep enough and you looked disrespectful. The training manual had been very specific about this. Tell me what value you bring to my empire. Straight to business then. Derek had prepared for this. I'm here to help bridge our cultures, Your Majesty. Humanity and the Valkyrie have much to learn from each other. Trade agreements are good, but understanding, that's what builds lasting alliances. The Queen tilted her head slightly. Understanding. What a quaint concept. There was no warmth in her words, but there wasn't mockery either. Just observation. They talked for an hour about trade routes, cultural exchange programs, and diplomatic protocols. It was dry stuff, the kind of conversation Derek usually found mind-numbing. But something kept nagging at him. The throne room was huge, but the Queen sat alone. Her attendants, and there were at least 20 of them, stood exactly 10 paces back, forming a perfect circle around her. Not 9 paces. Not 11. Exactly 10. Nobody spoke unless she spoke first. Nobody moved unless she moved first. The formality was suffocating. Derek made a mistake then. A tired, jet-lagged, trying to make small talk kind of mistake. You know, back on Earth, we have these things called birthdays. We celebrate the day someone was born. There's cake, candles, singing. It's pretty fun, actually. Maybe that's something we could share as part of the cultural exchange. The room went silent. Like, really silent. The kind of silence that makes you realize you've said something very wrong or very right, and you're not sure which. The Queen stared at him. Birthday, she repeated slowly, as if testing the word. A celebration of birth. Yeah. The day you came into the world. You get together with friends and family, eat cake, open presents. It's a way of saying hey, we're glad you exist. The translator struggled with that last part. Derek watched the Queen's expression shift through several emotions too quickly to identify. Then her face went neutral again. How inefficient, she said flatly. Birth is a biological function. Celebrating it serves no strategic purpose. Maybe not strategic, but it makes people happy. Isn't that worth something? The Queen didn't answer. She simply dismissed him with a wave of her clawed hand. As Derek walked back across that enormous throne room, he glanced back once. The Queen was still sitting there, perfectly straight, perfectly isolated, surrounded by attendants who might as well have been statues. And for just a second, maybe he imagined it, her eyes looked less cold and more, something else. Curious, maybe. Or sad. That night, Derek couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about that moment. About the way the Queen had repeated the word birthday, like it was a foreign concept. Which, he realized, it probably was. He pulled up the Valkyrie cultural database on his tablet and started reading. 2 hours later, he found it buried in a subsection about royal protocols. Valkyrie queens were hatched alone in isolation chambers. No family present. No celebration. They emerged fully aware and immediately began their training to rule. The Valkyrie didn't celebrate births because births weren't seen as special, they were just the beginning of duty. Derek sat back in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. Queen Rathena had ruled for 90 years. 90 years, and nobody had ever celebrated the day she was born. Nobody had ever told her they were glad she existed. That was when the idea hit him. It was stupid. Possibly career-ending. Maybe even dangerous. But Derek Webb had never been great at playing it safe. He was going to throw the Queen of the Valkyrie Empire a birthday party. Derek knew he was probably insane. That thought kept running through his head as he sat in his tiny quarters, staring at his tablet like it held the secrets of the universe. He'd been on the Valkyrie throne ship for 2 weeks now, and the idea hadn't left him alone. Give the Queen a birthday party. Simple, right? Except nothing about this was simple. First problem, he needed to find out when the Queen was actually born. Or hatched. Whatever the Valkyrie called it. The cultural database was massive, thousands of files written in that flowing Valkyrie script that made his eyes hurt. Derek spent 3 nights scrolling through historical records, royal decrees, and ceremonial logs until his vision blurred. Then he found it. Buried in a document about the succession of royal power, one line mentioned the date of Queen Rathena's emergence from the hatching chamber. 92 years ago, in their calendar. Derek did the conversion to Earth dates and circled it on his tablet. 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to pull off the most ridiculous diplomatic gesture in human history. The second problem was bigger. Colonel Janet Foster. She was Derek's direct superior, stationed on the human embassy ship that orbited nearby. Janet was smart, experienced, and had absolutely zero tolerance for what she called cowboy diplomacy. Derek called her anyway. He had to. Her face appeared on his screen, already frowning. This better be important, Webb. It's 0400 here. I need to requisition some supplies from the embassy ship. Flour, sugar, eggs, butter, vanilla extract, chocolate. Stop. Janet rubbed her eyes. Why exactly do you need baking supplies on an alien warship? Derek took a breath. I want to make the Queen a birthday cake. The silence stretched out for a good 10 seconds. Then Janet laughed, short and sharp. You're joking. I'm really not. Webb, do you have any idea how badly this could go? The Valkyrie don't do birthdays. They don't do celebrations. You show up with a cake and candles, and the Queen might see it as mockery. As an insult. She could have you thrown in whatever passes for a prison around here. Or, Derek said slowly, she might appreciate that someone finally acknowledged her existence as more than just a ruler. Janet stared at him through the screen. You're really going to do this, aren't you? Yes'm. She sighed, the kind of sigh that said she was too tired to argue. Fine. I'll authorize the supplies. But Webb? When this blows up in your face, I'm putting "I told you so" on your performance review. Fair enough. The supplies arrived 2 days later in a diplomatic pouch. Derek hid them in his quarters like contraband. Which, technically, they kind of were. Now came the really tricky part, actually making a cake that wouldn't kill an alien queen. Derek had never been much of a cook back on Earth. His specialty was instant noodles and protein bars. But he'd watched his grandmother bake enough times to remember the basics. The real problem was Valkyrie biology. He spent hours cross-referencing human food ingredients with Valkyrie dietary information. Turns out, Valkyrie could process most carbon-based compounds, but certain proteins made them violently ill. Eggs were out. Regular milk was out. Derek had to get creative, substituting with synthetic alternatives from the medical bay that wouldn't trigger an allergic reaction. He also needed a kitchen. The Valkyrie didn't have kitchens. They consumed nutrient paste from dispensers, efficient, balanced, and completely joyless. Derek managed to convert a small storage room near his quarters into a makeshift cooking space, using a portable heating unit he'd borrowed from engineering. The first attempt was a disaster. The cake came out dense and rubbery, like something you could use to patch a hull breach. Derek threw it in the recycler and started over. The second attempt was worse. He forgot to adjust for the ship's artificial gravity, and the whole thing collapsed into a sad, flat disk. By the fourth attempt, Derek was ready to give up. Then someone knocked on his door. Derek froze. If anyone found out what he was doing, word would get back to the Queen before he was ready. He cracked the door open and found himself looking at a young Valkyrie, barely 5 feet tall with lighter purple skin that marked him as lower caste. Lieutenant Webb, the Valkyrie said quietly. My name is Krell. I need to speak with you. Derek glanced down the corridor. Empty. Come in. Quickly. Krell slipped inside and immediately spotted the baking disaster on Derek's makeshift counter. His crystalline eyes widened. You are making food? Real food? Trying to, Derek muttered. Not going great. Why? Derek hesitated. But something about Krell's expression, curious, open, not judgmental, made him answer honestly. I want to give the Queen a birthday cake. I know it sounds crazy. Krell was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. The Queen watches your human broadcasts. What? Late at night, when she thinks no one is watching. She accesses your entertainment files. Programs about families, friends, celebrations. She watches them alone in her chambers. Krell's voice dropped to a whisper. I have seen her, touch the screen. When the humans embrace. When they laugh together. She touches the screen like she wants to understand what it feels like. Derek felt something twist in his chest. How do you know this? I clean her private chambers. She does not notice me. No one notices us lower caste. Krell stepped closer to the counter. I think what you are doing is good, Lieutenant Webb. The Queen is powerful, yes. But she is also alone. So very alone. Will you help me? Derek asked. Krell nodded. I will help you. But we must be careful. There are those in the court who would not like to see the Queen change. Who would not like to see her soften. Over the next 2 weeks, Derek and Krell worked in secret. Krell provided insight into Valkyrie preferences. They liked bitter flavors over sweet, and certain minerals in their diet that Derek could incorporate into the frosting. He also helped Derek understand the political landscape of the court, the various factions and power players who watched the Queen's every move. The 5th cake attempt was edible. The 6th was actually good. The 7th was perfect, a rich dark chocolate base with a frosting Derek had engineered to be safe for Valkyrie consumption, decorated with bioluminescent flowers from the ship's garden that would glow like candles. The night before the Queen's hatching day, Derek stood in his makeshift kitchen, staring at the finished cake. His hands were shaking. You are nervous, Krell observed. Terrified, Derek admitted. What if she hates it? What if this makes everything worse? Krell placed a clawed hand on Derek's shoulder. Or what if you give her something no one else ever has? Hope. Connection. A reason to smile. Derek looked at the cake one more time. Tomorrow then. Tomorrow, Krell agreed. Tomorrow, everything changes. Derek couldn't eat breakfast. His stomach was doing backflips as he stared at the cake sitting in its protective container. Today was the day. The Queen's hatching day. The day he'd either make history or destroy his entire career. He'd requested a private audience under the pretense of discussing new trade proposals. Standard diplomatic stuff. The Queen's assistant had approved it without question. They had no idea what was actually coming. Krell met him outside the throne room, his crystalline eyes flickering with worry. Are you certain about this, Lieutenant Webb? Derek adjusted his uniform, trying to look more confident than he felt. Not even a little bit. But we're doing it anyway. I will be watching from the upper gallery, Krell whispered. If anything goes wrong. Then you run and pretend you never knew me, Derek finished. He picked up the container. Wish me luck. The throne room was emptier this time. Just the Queen on her obsidian throne and 2 guards by the far doors. That was good. Fewer witnesses if this turned into a complete disaster. Queen Rathena regarded him with those sharp, intelligent eyes. Lieutenant Webb. You requested this meeting to discuss trade proposals. Actually, Your Majesty, I wasn't entirely honest about that. Derek's voice cracked slightly. Great start. I'm here for something else. Something personal. The Queen's posture stiffened. Her guards shifted slightly, hands moving closer to their weapons. Explain. Derek set the container on the floor and opened it slowly, revealing the cake inside. The bioluminescent flowers glowed softly in the dim light of the throne room, casting blue and purple shadows across the dark frosting. Your Majesty, I discovered that today is your hatching day. The day you came into this world 92 years ago. Derek lifted the cake carefully, holding it out toward her. On Earth, we celebrate these days. We call them birthdays. And I thought maybe you deserved to have one too. The Queen stared at the cake like Derek had just presented her with a live grenade. She didn't move. Didn't speak. The silence stretched out so long that Derek started to sweat. What is this? Her voice was barely above a whisper. It's a birthday cake. It's tradition. You eat it with people who care about you. There's usually singing, candles, wishes. I tried to make it safe for Valkyrie biology. The flowers glow like candles because I couldn't find real ones that wouldn't set off the ship's fire suppression system. The Queen rose from her throne. Derek's heart hammered as she descended the steps toward him. She moved like a predator, smooth, controlled, dangerous. When she stopped in front of him, he had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. "You made this?" she asked. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Well, I had some help understanding what wouldn't make you sick, but yeah. I made it." "Why?" That was the question, wasn't it? Derek took a breath. "Because I've been here for a month now, and I've watched you. You sit on that throne surrounded by people, but you're completely alone. Nobody talks to you like you're a person. Nobody asks how you're doing. Nobody celebrates you just for existing. And I thought, everyone deserves at least one day where someone tells them they matter. Even a queen." Something flickered across Rathina's face. Her secondary eyelids, thin membranes that Valkyrie usually kept retracted, slid partially closed. Derek had read that it was a sign of strong emotion. "There is a song?" she asked quietly. "Oh. Yeah. The birthday song. It's pretty simple. And I'm a terrible singer, just so you know." Derek cleared his throat, feeling his face heat up. "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday Queen Rathina, happy birthday to you." His voice cracked on the high note. It was objectively awful. He'd heard better singing from malfunctioning door chimes. But he sang it anyway, in halting Valkyrie that he'd practiced with Krell for 2 weeks straight. When he finished, the throne room was silent again. The Queen reached out with one clawed hand and touched the edge of the cake with the tip of one finger, so gently it barely left an impression in the frosting. "In 92 years, she said slowly, no one has ever done this. No one has ever acknowledged the day of my hatching as something worth noting." "Well, they should have," Derek said. "Because the universe is a better place with you in it." That's when it happened. A single crystalline tear formed at the corner of the Queen's eye and rolled down her angular face. Then another. Then several more. Her shoulders shook slightly. Derek panicked. "Oh no. Your Majesty, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. I can take it away. I'll leave. I'll request a transfer. Stop talking, Lieutenant Webb." The Queen's voice was rough, broken. She touched her face where the tears were falling, staring at the moisture on her claws like she'd forgotten what crying felt like. "These are not tears of anger. I do not know what they are. I have not cried since I was a hatchling." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and Derek saw something that the briefings had never mentioned. Behind the cold exterior, behind the warrior queen facade, there was someone desperately, achingly lonely. "You said there are wishes?" she asked. "Yeah. You're supposed to make a wish when you blow out the candles. Well, these don't blow out exactly, but you can touch them and they'll dim." The Queen reached out and placed her hand over the glowing flowers. They dimmed under her touch, their light fading to a soft pulse. "What did you wish for?" Derek asked, then immediately regretted it. "Sorry. You're not supposed to tell or it won't come true." "I wished," the Queen said, her voice steadier now, "to understand what this feels like. This thing you have done. This kindness with no strategic purpose. This celebration of existence." She paused. "How do I consume this cake?" Derek couldn't help but smile. "You cut it into pieces and eat it. Here, let me show you." He pulled out a knife he'd brought for this exact purpose and cut 2 slices. He handed one to the Queen on a plate. She studied it like it was a complex piece of technology. "You eat it with your hands?" she asked. "You can use a fork, but yeah, hands work too." The Queen took a small bite. Her eyes widened. "This is remarkable. The bitterness mixed with something sweet. The texture is soft but substantial. You like it?" "I have consumed nutrient paste for 92 years, Lieutenant Webb. This is the first time food has made me feel something other than satisfied." She took another bite, larger this time. "Tell me about Earth birthdays. All of it. Every tradition." So Derek did. He pulled up a chair, which felt insane, sitting in the throne room like it was his living room, and told her everything. About birthday parties with friends and messy cake fights. About his little sister who always tried to blow out his candles before he could. About his mom who baked elaborate cakes shaped like spaceships and dinosaurs. About the feeling of being surrounded by people who were just happy you existed for another year. The Queen listened to every word, asking questions, her tears drying on her face but the vulnerability still there in her eyes. "No one's ever celebrated my birth before," she said again, softer this time. "I did not know I wanted this. I did not know this was something I could want." Derek met her gaze. "Everyone deserves to be celebrated, Your Majesty. Even queens. Especially queens." For the first time since he'd arrived on the throne ship, Queen Rathena smiled. It was small, uncertain, like she was remembering how. And Derek realized that everything was about to change. The Queen didn't let Derek leave. That was the first surprise. "Stay," she'd said, still holding her plate with half a slice of cake on it. "Tell me more about these celebrations. These gatherings of family and friends." So Derek stayed. They talked for 3 hours straight. The guards by the door looked increasingly uncomfortable as their rigid, untouchable queen sat on the steps of her throne, eating cake and asking questions about human childhood like a kid learning about space travel for the first time. "On your birthdays, people give you gifts?" she asked. "Yeah. Usually things they think you'd like. Books, games, clothes. Sometimes just silly stuff that makes you laugh. It's not about the gift being expensive. It's about showing someone you were thinking about them." The Queen was quiet for a moment. "I receive tribute from conquered worlds. Weapons, resources, technology. But no one has ever given me something simply because they thought I would enjoy it." Derek's chest tightened. "That's messed up, Your Majesty." "Is it?" She tilted her head. "I have never known anything different." By the time Derek finally left the throne room, the entire ship knew something had happened. Word traveled fast in a place where everyone watched everyone else. Krell met him in the corridor, his eyes wide. "The guards are talking." The Queen smiled. She cried. She ate food with her hands like a commoner. Krell grabbed Derek's arm. "What did you do in there?" "I think I made a friend," Derek said, still processing it himself. The next day, Derek was summoned again. This time, the Queen wasn't alone. Her full court was assembled, dozens of high-ranking Valkyrie in ornate armor, all standing in their perfect circles of hierarchy. Derek's stomach dropped. This was it. They'd decided his birthday stunt was disrespectful. He was going to be executed or exiled or whatever the Valkyrie did to diplomats who overstepped. But the Queen was smiling again. That small, uncertain smile that looked like it hurt from lack of practice. "Lieutenant Derek Webb," she announced, her voice carrying through the vast chamber. "I am creating a new position. You will serve as my cultural advisor. You will teach me about human customs, traditions, and this concept of celebration you introduced me to." The court erupted in murmurs. A cultural advisor? That position didn't exist in Valkyrie hierarchy. It made no sense. It had no strategic value. An older Valkyrie stepped forward, his armor covered in military honors. "Your Majesty, with respect, this is highly irregular. The human's role was temporary liaison, not." "Are you questioning my judgment, General Thane?" The general's mouth snapped shut. "No, Your Majesty." "Good. Then it is decided." She looked at Derek. "You will also help me implement something new. I am declaring an annual recognition day for all Valkyrie. A day where we acknowledge not just achievement and duty, but existence itself." The court went completely silent. Derek could feel the shock radiating through the room. Recognition Day. She was creating birthdays for an entire species. Over the next few weeks, the changes came fast. Too fast for some. The Queen started appearing in parts of the ship she'd never visited before. She asked her attendants their names, something she'd apparently never done. She reduced the mandatory distance her court had to maintain from 10 paces to 5. Small changes. But in a society as rigid as the Valkyrie, small changes felt like earthquakes. Derek watched it happen with a mix of pride and growing worry. The lower caste Valkyrie loved it. Workers who'd been invisible their entire lives suddenly felt seen. But the upper caste? The generals, the old noble families, the ones who'd built their power on strict hierarchy? They were getting nervous. Krell confirmed it one night, slipping into Derek's quarters looking scared. "There is talk in the lower corridors," he whispered. "The old guard is angry. They say the Queen is becoming weak. That human sentiment is corrupting her judgment." "That's ridiculous. She's not weak. She's just being allowed to be a person for once." "You do not understand Valkyrie politics, Lieutenant Webb. Strength is everything. A queen who cries, who eats cake, who acknowledges the lower castes, this threatens the entire power structure." Krell's hands trembled. They will not accept these changes quietly. Derek wanted to dismiss it. But over the next few days, he noticed things. Certain nobles stopped attending the Queen's assemblies. Conversations would stop abruptly when he entered a room. The guards watched him with expressions he couldn't read. Then the Queen called him to her private chambers. Not the throne room, her actual living space. Derek had never been there before. It was surprisingly sparse. No decorations, no personal items. Just functional furniture and weapon displays on the walls. Except for one thing, a small table where she placed the bioluminescent flowers from her cake in water. They still glowed softly. "They are planning something," the Queen said without preamble. She stood by the window, looking out at the stars. "My intelligence network has intercepted communications. There is a faction within my court that wants to end these reforms." "End them how?" She turned to face him. "By removing their source. You, Lieutenant Webb." Derek's blood went cold. "Me? They believe if you are gone, I will return to my former ways. They do not understand that you did not create these feelings in me, you simply showed me they were allowed to exist." She moved closer. "I will not let them harm you. You have my protection." "Your Majesty, maybe I should just leave. Go back to the embassy ship. If my being here is causing problems." "No." Her voice was sharp. "Do you know what you have given me, Derek Webb? For 92 years, I believed my purpose was to rule, to conquer, to maintain order. I did not know I was allowed to want more. To want connection. To want to be seen as something other than a weapon." Her eyes glistened again. "You showed me I can be both strong and vulnerable. Both a queen and a person. I will not surrender that because frightened old nobles cling to the past." Derek swallowed hard. "So what do? We continue. We push forward with the reforms. And we watch very carefully." She placed a hand on his shoulder, and Derek felt the weight of it, not just physically, but the trust it represented. "You have changed my empire, Derek Webb. Now we must ensure that change survives." That night, Derek couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Krell had said. About the old guard. About how dangerous change was in a society built on rigid tradition. His tablet beeped. A message from Colonel Janet Foster. "Webb, I'm hearing rumors from our intelligence sources. Be careful. You've stirred up something bigger than you realize. Watch your back." Derek stared at the message for a long time. Then he looked at the small crystal figure Krell had given him, a Valkyrie symbol of friendship. And he thought about the Queen, learning to smile, learning that her existence mattered beyond her title. Whatever was coming, Derek decided, it was worth it. Some things were worth fighting for. Even if that thing was just teaching an alien queen that she deserved a birthday. The storm was coming. Derek could feel it. But he wasn't backing down. Not now. Not after coming this far. The summons came 3 days later. A Grand Court Assembly. Mandatory attendance for all ranking officials and foreign dignitaries. Derek's hands shook as he read the notification on his tablet. Krell appeared at his door within minutes, breathing hard like he'd been running. "They are making their move. Today. At the assembly." "How do you know?" "The servants hear everything. General Thane and his faction have prepared accusations against you. They will demand your removal. Maybe worse." Krell grabbed Derek's arm. "You could leave now. Take a shuttle back to your embassy ship. Claim a medical emergency. No one would blame you." Derek looked around his small quarters. At the notes he'd made about Valkyrie culture. At the recipes he'd practiced. At the photo on his desk of his family back on Earth, his parents, his sister Riley with her gap-toothed grin. What would they think if he ran now? "I'm not leaving," Derek said quietly. "The Queen needs someone in her corner. Besides, if I run, it proves their point, that human influence is dangerous and needs to be eliminated." "You are very brave or very stupid." Derek managed a weak smile. "Probably both." The Grand Assembly Hall was even bigger than the throne room. Hundreds of Valkyrie filled the space, arranged in precise hierarchical circles. Derek spotted the Queen on her throne at the center, her posture rigid, her face unreadable. Their eyes met briefly. She gave the smallest nod. Derek took his place in the outer circle, where the foreign dignitaries stood. He could feel hostile stares boring into his back. General Thane stepped forward first. He was old by Valkyrie standards, his armor dulled by time but covered in so many military honors that it practically glowed. His voice boomed across the hall. "Your Majesty, honored members of the court. I come before you today with grave concerns about the direction of our great empire. He paused for effect. For 92 years, you have ruled with strength and absolute authority. You have expanded our territory, crushed our enemies, and maintained perfect order. But recently, we have witnessed troubling changes. Murmurs of agreement rippled through certain sections of the crowd. These changes began with the arrival of the human, Lieutenant Derek Webb. Since his presence, Your Majesty has deviated from centuries of tradition. You have shown emotion publicly. You have reduced the sacred distance between ruler and subject. You have created this recognition day that serves no military or strategic purpose. Thane's eyes fixed on Derek. Most concerning, you have allowed this human to influence your judgment, to corrupt our values with soft sentiment. More voices joined in agreement. Derek felt his stomach twist. Thane continued, building momentum. I do not question your right to rule, Your Majesty. But I do question whether this human's influence has weakened your judgment. For the good of the Empire, I formally request that Lieutenant Webb be removed from his position and expelled from Velkari space. Permanently. The hall erupted. Some Velkari shouted in support. Others remained silent, watching. Derek noticed that the lower caste workers in the back of the room looked terrified. Furthermore, Thane raised his voice over the noise. If Your Majesty refuses this request, we must assume the human's corruption runs too deep. In such cases, the ancient laws provide a remedy. A council of generals may assume temporary authority until proper judgment is restored. That was a threat. A barely veiled coup disguised as concern. The queen rose slowly from her throne. The hall went silent. When she spoke, her voice was cold steel. You dare threaten me, General Thane? Not a threat, Your Majesty. A safeguard. One written into our oldest laws. Laws designed for queens who had lost their minds to battle madness or illness. Not for queens who simply chose to see their people as more than military assets. She descended the steps, and Derek watched Thane actually take a step back. You speak of weakness. Of corruption. Let me tell you what I see. The queen walked past Thane, her eyes sweeping across the assembled court. For 92 years, I have ruled exactly as you wanted. Cold. Distant. Untouchable. I conquered worlds and crushed rebellions. I did everything a Velkari queen is supposed to do. And I was utterly alone. Her voice cracked slightly on that last word. Derek saw several Velkari in the crowd exchange glances. Then this human did something no one in my empire had ever done. He acknowledged that my existence, not my military victories, not my strategic decisions, but simply my existence, was worth celebrating. He showed me that strength and vulnerability are not opposites. That I could be both a powerful ruler and a person who deserves connection. She stopped in front of Derek. Do you know what true weakness is, General Thane? It is not crying or smiling or caring about those beneath you. True weakness is being so afraid of change that you would rather maintain a broken system than risk something better. The Queen turned back to face the court. Lieutenant Webb did not corrupt me. He freed me. And I will not return to my prison of isolation simply because it makes you comfortable. Your Majesty, Thane started. I am not finished. The Queen's voice rang with absolute authority. Effective immediately, I am restructuring our government. There will be a council, yes, but not of generals. Of representatives from every caste. Workers, soldiers, scholars, even the servants you ignore in the hallways. They will have voices in how this empire is run. The hall exploded in shouting. Some Velkari cheered. Others protested furiously. Thane's face twisted with rage. This is madness. You cannot simply overturn millennia of tradition because one human made you a cake. You are absolutely right, the Queen said calmly. One cake did not change everything. But it showed me that change was possible. That I was allowed to want more than duty. That every being in this empire, regardless of rank, deserves to be recognized as a person, not just a function. She walked back to her throne but didn't sit. Instead, she stood before it, looking out at her people. To those of you who fear these changes, I understand. Change is frightening. But I promise you, an empire where people are valued, where connection is encouraged, where existence itself is celebrated, that empire will be stronger, not weaker. We will still defend our territory. We will still honor military achievement. But we will also honor kindness, creativity, and the simple fact of being alive. The Queen's eyes found Derek again. Lieutenant Derek Webb showed me that being born, especially mine, is worth celebrating. He gave me a gift no conquest ever could. He made me feel like I mattered as an individual. For that, I am grateful. And I will not allow anyone to punish him for his compassion. She sat on her throne. General Thane, you are relieved of your command. You may retire with honors or face charges of sedition. Choose wisely. As for the rest of you, adapt or step aside. This is the future of the Valkyrie Empire. The assembly dissolved into chaos. Some nobles stormed out. Others approached the throne to pledge support. Lower caste Valkyrie in the back openly wept with relief. Krell appeared at Derek's side, grinning. You did it. She chose change. She chose you. She chose herself, Derek corrected. I just gave her permission to want more. Later, in her private chambers, the Queen presented Derek with a gift. It was a Valkyrie crystal, carved into the shape of a small cake, no bigger than his fist. The craftsmanship was incredible, every detail perfect, even tiny crystal flowers on top. On your world, people give gifts to show they were thinking of someone, the Queen said. I thought of you while this was being made. Of what you risked to show me kindness. Derek took the crystal carefully. It was surprisingly warm. Your Majesty, I don't know what to say. You gave me a birthday. I give you proof that one person's compassion can reshape a civilization. She smiled, and this time it looked natural. Thank you, Derek Webb, for teaching me that I am worth celebrating. 6 months later, Derek stood on the bridge of the human embassy ship, preparing to return to Earth. His assignment was complete. The Valkyrie Empire had its council. Recognition Day was now an official holiday. The Queen had even started hosting monthly gatherings where she actually talked with her people like equals. His tablet chimed. A message from the Queen, with a video attachment. Derek opened it and immediately started laughing. The video showed Queen Rathena in her chambers, surrounded by her new council members. They were attempting to bake a cake, emphasis on attempting. The kitchen was a disaster. Flour covered everything. Someone had apparently confused salt and sugar. And the singing was absolutely terrible, even worse than Derek's had been. But they were all smiling. Actually smiling. The Queen's message was simple: thank you for teaching me that being born, especially mine, is worth celebrating. The cake was terrible. We will try again next year. You are always welcome here, friend. Derek saved the crystal cake in his personal belongings and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was an alien queen who'd learned to celebrate her existence. Who'd reformed an empire because one human had shown her kindness. Colonel Foster appeared beside him. So, Webb. Think you can top that on your next assignment? Derek grinned. Not a chance. But I'll sure try. Because that's what humans did. They found the lonely, the isolated, the forgotten, and they reminded them, you matter. Your existence is worth celebrating. Even if you're a queen. Especially if you're a queen. And sometimes, that simple message could change an entire galaxy.